My name's Eli Delaney, and I have the honor of meeting some pretty cool people. These are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the creatives, the game changers that are making a positive impact in the people that they meet. And I'm a firm believer that the people that you meet can get you anywhere you want to go. And this show is my way of sharing them with you. It's my way of also helping you meet cool people. All right, welcome back, everybody. Eli here. And today on Meet Cool People, I have a new friend. We've been hanging out via our Success Champions group fairly recently, probably in the last month or so. And our first conversation, we hit it off immediately, just had a great chat. And so I wanted to make sure I brought her in here. And this is Elise Bay. She's a brand strategist for founder-led businesses. She works with established founders who have outgrown where they are, where they started, and are the ones that are good at what they do, but have lost the thread between what they know and how they're showing up, which I think is one of the things that we've all been through if we've been in business for any type of time. Because I know for me personally, I did that a few times. And so being what she does, I wanted to bring her in, have a cool conversation. So with that said, Elise, thanks for coming and hanging out today.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit more about who your clients are, like how are you helping them?
Well, I am usually brought into the room when the founder grew business and they grew it to a certain level, and now they feel like they need to be somebody else, and so there becomes this disconnect between this incredible passion that they've had and the reason why they even started this business in the first place, and now they're told, no, well, now you're at this level, you have to be someone else. So they start speaking like somebody else. But unfortunately, one of two things happens. Either they keep talking about who they used to be, which they're not anymore because they grew. And so now there's a disconnect because people don't get it. Or, which is even worse actually, is people get told, well, you should be speaking like this. Now you're at this level, you need to be something like this. And so they start borrowing words from their competitors. Well, if it worked for them, it has to work for us. And so it's because that's when I get brought in, because not all of a sudden something feels really off and they don't really know what it is.
Yeah, so I can totally resonate with that. I see that all the time too. And I've been through that process, and it wasn't so much what other people said I should be, but I felt like I was at a level I needed to act differently and talk differently, and it was super uncomfortable. And I found out that that was the worst thing I could have done. I did that early on in my career. And we see this all the time, especially in today's world, that we live in this world with social media being what it is. People see what is quote unquote success, and they like, okay, I need to be more like this person. Like coming from a speaker background, as soon as I talk to other speakers, so many of them think that they need to be like Gary Vaynerchuk, who gets up on stage and has an F-bomb every third word. And
Right.
and it's like, okay, if that's part of that's part of his personality. I know him personally. That's his personality.
Right.
But if you're doing it because you think you need to sound like him, you're gonna fall flat. And I think that we as entrepreneurs, when we go through phases of growth, we have that phase of, okay, well, I need to do this because that person does it and that's what's making them successful. When at the end of the day, that really isn't it. Is that kind of how you're seeing it too?
That's exactly how I see it, because the problem is, and it is so natural, because most of us, including Gary Vee, I can guarantee you,
Yeah.
we started off thinking there is a problem, I can fix it, and I can do good in the world. So we start businesses. And do we ever learn anything about business in school? Absolutely not. So we go and we're stumbling through this thing and we're doing our best. Now, for the founders who actually are doing really well, they were probably surrounded by really good people. And so they grew and they get to the point where all of a sudden the business is starting to look different. It's starting to feel different. And quite often it's a matter of, now we're selling different service, or the service is for different people because there has been a shift. And so that becomes a problem. So when that happens, they come to me, and the first question I get asked is, can you rebrand us?
Mm,
And
okay.
believe me, I take that very seriously, but I will slow that down because I need to know, why do you think you need to be rebranded?
Right.
Chances are you don't, or at least not a complete rebrand.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's usually how it goes. Yeah.
Right. And I can imagine that a lot of that is like, it's not a rebrand. If you're talking, if you're selling to a different audience, that doesn't necessarily mean you need to rebrand. It just means you need to speak to that audience a little differently. But you still want to be you. And that's a big piece that I think that we have, this identity crisis in today's world, and entrepreneurs run through it all the time. And I think that, I've even seen this myself. And I was talking to somebody earlier today, actually, where they they kept changing the conversation based on who they happened to talk to, because they thought that they could sell that person differently, and then all it did is get confusing. And I think that that's a
Yeah.
big problem that a lot of people have, especially more so younger entrepreneurs, that they're still trying to find themselves. And I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit. If somebody is still trying to figure out, who am I, like their own identity for their branding of their company and themselves, because you and I both know that personal branding is a huge piece of branding in general. Like,
Sure.
what are some of the things that they need to do to help figure out, who am I?
Well, I think the first thing, and this is something that I came up with a long time ago, is when I was trying to figure out, who am I, and I was trying to figure out, who am I for? What is my reason? Why am I even here?
Mhm.
And everybody says, well, what is the transformation you offer? What challenges do you change? What do you fix for people? And I finally came to a point where I thought, it's not about that at all. It's about it's about what upsets me about my business, or about what really throws me off. The one
Yeah.
thing that I hate about what's happening in my industry, that's what I want to fix.
Okay.
And that is my reason for being here.
Right.
It's not so much that I'm not, so I don't go and I don't tell people I'm gonna transform your business. No, I hate how brands are being built. And the main reason why I hate that is because there's a big piece that a lot of brand people, brand strategists, brand builders, they miss it, and that's the emotional intelligence below it all.
Okay.
And it's the emotional intelligence and trusting your own intuition, because we all know deep down, we all know. So anybody who is new in a business, just trust your gut. Your gut will
Right.
tell you. And really, don't even so much worry about how are you helping people. Think about, how are they going to feel when you
Mhm.
help them.
Yeah.
That's the transformation, and that's where
Okay.
that little piece lives.
Yeah. I can agree with you 100% on that. I feel it's like, as an example, at the point of recording this episode, my book just went live this week, and people who read the book where the very first thing that they said was, okay, this is not what I expected, because they expected an email marketing book, which is, this is how you write $1 million subject line, because that's what all the other ones say.
Yeah.
And I mean, first chapter, I say, this book is not a get rich quick. This is not about how do you manipulate people. This is how you actually build relationships and communicate with them. And when these guys came back to me, they're like, this is not what I expected. This is so much better. I get it. And oh, this book is totally you. It sounds like you talking to me as I'm reading
Yeah.
it. And that meant so much to me. Like that, I was like, okay, I've got a winner. Because if they say that the book sounds like me, and they felt like they were having a conversation with me, I win. That's all I was after. And
Yep.
I think that when we can do that, and we do this in so many different ways, like for me, most of it is writing, not just the book, but I do a lot of, online content as well. That's writing, because I love to write. And that's kind of my natural medium that I like to use. But when you can write, or you talk to people, you get on stage, whether you're on a podcast, whatever it is, when you get out there, and as you're communicating, and you brought up EQ on this, like as you communicate with people, how do you make them feel? And
Okay.
I think that is such an underrated skill and thought process that I love that you're bringing that up and thinking of that as a piece of branding, because everybody else thinks about branding is it's like, okay, the font and the color and all the other goofy stuff. For
Of
me, I was
course.
like, I used to basically, because I count my first company was a web and graphic design agency. So I'm like, okay, branding, pick a font, pick a color, stick with it.
Right. Of course.
But it's so much, there's so much on the other side. And I love that you're bringing it up because how you make people feel is so much a massive piece of branding that gets under talked about, in my opinion.
Well, when you think about it, it is a known fact. This is Psych 101, is every decision we make is based on an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So if
Absolutely.
I want to, so if I'm going to pitch you what I do, I'm not going to pitch you, first of all, but if I did,
Right.
then I would want to make sure that I make you feel something so strongly about the transformation that I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to provide for you that the decision has already been made.
Right.
You don't need to think about it. You the moment you and I had a client who came to me and he says, every time I talk to you, I feel like you're in my head
That's
because
that's
you
wonderful.
totally get what I need and you
Right.
totally know how to get me there.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a win
Mm-hmm.
if there ever is one, right? And that's exactly what we need to do. And that is so overlooked because everybody is so concerned with messaging. Does the message sound right? Does it feel like it's dragging the people in? But it's not the emotional connection. It's about, are we using the right keywords? Are we
Right.
using the right messaging that we should be using? Well, what about if you just say it in your own words?
Right.
What if
Mm-hmm.
I just be you?
Yeah, I love that. And that is, for me, it's like as you were saying that, I'm thinking it's like everybody writes for the logarithm, right? That's
Yes.
the
Sure.
big buzzword in marketing, right? Um, but they forget about the human logarithm.
Yes.
It's like
Exactly.
what is it that you're doing that, you're using the words to some degree. Yes, you want to make sure that you're seen. So yeah, you could play with that stuff a little bit to some degree, but at the end of the day, if the robot looks at it, but the human doesn't care, is that a win? I would say no.
No,
And
it's
that's where a
not.
lot of people don't get it. Like we used to, coming from a web and graphic design background, it used to be is like keyword stuffing and things like that in order to rank high on search engines. And I was like, okay, you could rank high, but when somebody actually goes to your website and goes to read something on there and it's all gibberish and sounds like it was written by a drunk robot, that doesn't do anybody any good. They're not going to buy from you.
Well, and see, and this is exactly what happens when I get brought into a room. Well, this is the moment I get brought into a room is when you've got this team of people and they're going, something felt flat. Something
Mm,
is not landing. We're over explaining. We're not closing deals. People are not, it's just not connecting. So what's the first thing people do? They start rewriting their messaging.
mm-hmm.
They start
Yeah.
running different campaigns. And so the marketing efforts become, exaggerated,
Right.
but nobody really thinks about and go and that's why I don't really ask what is it that where we need to do. I want to know, where did you start, why, and how did you start?
Mm-hmm.
Because understanding that's what's going to connect with people, even though there may be a new market, it's still going to connect because that's where you started.
Right.
That was the original passion.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that you're bringing that back into, bring it down to the basics. I think that that's super important. So, what kind of clients are you working with? Like, what types of industries have you had some of the best success working with?
Well, some of the best success I had with M&A companies,
Okay.
and which I wasn't expecting that, to be honest with you,
Okay.
but I did, and it was probably because it's such a multi-layered um, business.
Mm-hmm.
You're selling businesses, you're buying businesses, you're helping people build businesses to sell, you're helping them build it after they're sold, after they're
Mm-hmm.
bought. So there's all these different levels of opportunities. But what if you have, I had an M&A company that was expanding their services. So they were going from selling and buying small businesses to moving to like a 20 million and up
Okay.
businesses.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden the approach had to be different, but it was still the same company.
Right.
So the challenge was, how do you expand the brand without losing the connection to either or? So that's a very good industry for me. The other one is restaurants. I've done a lot of work with restaurants, so hospitality is a pretty big place for me,
Okay.
just because I kind of grew up in that area.
Right.
So
Nice. Very cool.
mhm.
Now, how is it um, like for a hospitality business, especially like restaurants, where do you see that they're like going wrong and you can help them get back on the path again? I'd love to
Well, I'll
kind of
give
hear a
you
little
an
bit of story.
actual example.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
So I had a restaurant that had 10 locations. It was a culturally based restaurant, and they wanted to rebrand. And they've gone to two other agencies. They had asked them for rebrand strategy, and they gave it to them. They paid $25,000 each time for it, and neither one of them worked.
Mm,
And so when I came into the room and I asked them why they want to rebrand, the main reason they wanted to rebrand was because they wanted to start targeting, they wanted to start chasing Gen Zs.
okay.
They wanted to start chasing that demographic. They wanted to be trendy.
Mm,
And,
right.
in a restaurant industry, that is a big thing, right? Everybody wants to
Hmm.
be trending. And
Right.
there's way too many people who are doing marketing for that based on that,
Right.
on special and social. And so that's one of the biggest challenges that we have to overcome. I had to really rein them back and bring them back to their roots, and make them understand through many many conversations that this is not where you are. This is not where you belong. You're
Right.
not going to succeed. You're going after the wrong people. And so we did. We actually ended up bringing them back. I made them finally understand. And we did do an adjust to brand, but
Hmm.
we didn't do an actual rebrand. But we did a refresh. We did a refresh on the brand, and they stayed with their roots. And I said to them, I said, why don't you just become the best restaurant in your group rather
Right.
than trying to chase markets that are not yours?
Right. No, I think that's a great way to do it because there's enough room for everybody. If you find your niche, stick with it. You know, I mean, that's
100%.
yeah. And it's like if you've got somebody that you know you can serve properly, and you're great at serving them, and they get you. Why go after somebody else? Just go after more of them because there's a lot of people in this world.
Absolutely, there is, and there's
Yeah.
an awful lot of restaurants, and they all need help.
Mhm. Awesome. Very cool. So when so the type of client you're going with some of these bigger corporations, do you work with more smaller businesses as well?
I have worked. I've done quite a bit of work with startups.
Okay.
Um, I love working with startups because they're like sponges. It's like a blank canvas, right?
Right.
It's really cool to work with them. The problem is, as I'm developing my methodology, I'm realizing that most of the startups don't have the problems that I'm fixing
Okay.
because they haven't grown into them yet.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's not really a great area for me. Now, small businesses, I prefer to work with businesses that work as a team.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. And yeah, because that's I mean, and I totally get that where like a startup especially, they didn't have a brand that they're trying to rebrand with. So,
Hmm.
they're not going off the path that they were already on to begin with. So I can totally see that.
Right.
It's really good to kind of see that. And how does for somebody that is in that kind of that smaller space or more startup phase, or even just they might be doing great, they might have been in business for a couple of years, but they're still on that fresher side. How do they avoid getting into this situation? And like, what are some of the red flags they should be looking for? Where okay, we're thinking of doing these things, and we want to do after this, and you should like, oh no, well, step back for a second. Let's talk. What are some of those red flags that they should be aware of? So maybe we can help them not make those mistakes, or at least not as badly.
Well, I think that one of the biggest red flags is when founders are visionaries for the most part, or they
Hmm.
should be, right?
Right.
So, as a visionary, as you start growing your business, all of a sudden you get these great ideas.
Right.
and you got tons of them. And that could take you down the wrong path. It could also be that, hey, I'm already doing this and this is doing really well. So now I'm going to go and do something else. And so when they go and do something else, chances are that they didn't even do the research. So they're starting something because they're going, well, I've always wanted to do this,
Mm,
but they don't really think it through. So is there even a market for it?
right.
So those are things. So that's one thing. And the other part, I think that that's a big red flag, is when the communication between the team, all the members of the team, starts breaking down because everybody is, it's ego driven.
Hmm.
So rein your ego back, because that's not going to get you anywhere. You have to work together as a team. I mean, there's a reason for it.
Right.
And I think that that kind of can get away very quickly as the company grows, because they're not used to that setup. They're not used to working as a team. Everybody's kind of working independently and trying to make things work.
Right.
But if you don't bring it back together, then that's a recipe for failure right there.
Right. No, and I love that, because that is something I see all the time with businesses that I don't know, like I see as somebody on the marketing realm of things, I see like sales and marketing people always butting heads against each other. And
Yeah.
it's like, guys, you're two sides of the same coin. You got to work together. And like even what I do, in the email marketing side, I salespeople for some reason don't like me because they think that I am competing with them. I'm like, no, my stuff helps work with what you're doing. I want to make your life easier so you can sell more stuff. It's not a competing
Right.
thing. And
Right.
so I always find that interesting. And that's human nature to some degree, but I've never understood it. It's like, no, we all have the same goal, because if we are more successful and we help our clients provide better and solve their problems better, we can all succeed. We can all make more money. This is a win for everybody. I don't see why we should be arguing with each other.
Well, I always believe that sales and marketing should be a very, very good marriage. I mean,
Hmm.
there should be no arguments there, because
Absolutely.
one cannot work without the other.
Mm.
And and branding kind of becomes that too. The one issue that I see a lot is a lot of marketing companies think that I fit built underneath them, that it's marketing and branding, and it's
Right.
actually the other way around.
Right.
And so that actually can cause a lot of unpleasantness
Right.
between the
Animosity.
two.
That's the word.
Animosity is the
Yep.
word I was going for.
Yep.
Yeah, that could definitely be a problem. But like you said, we all work together. I mean, we're all in this. The goal is the same for all of us.
Right.
So
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I see that, because I always think, like, a lot of times I run into marketing companies, and then for me it's interesting because a lot of them, they're like, "Oh yeah, we do email marketing stuff, so we do it all in house." And I'm like, "Yeah, but your emails probably suck," because this is my specialty of it. But I think of it
yeah,
because a lot of them, they are focusing on the branding, but again, they go back to the the visual branding as opposed to the emotional branding, which I think. Um, Obviously the other piece is important, but the emotional is what builds loyalty. The color and the font you use are not going to build loyalty. It's the
no,
feeling and the emotion behind it and how you make people trust you. And I'm a
that's
big
it.
one on know, like, and trust. People want to do
Mhm.
business with you even if they're not ready to.
Yeah.
And how do we make that happen? And that to me is where branding stands out more than anything else. So I like that you're coming at it from that angle, which so many people don't do. And I think that so many businesses are missing that piece. They're like, oh, well, I need a new logo. No, you don't. It's not your logo isn't going to make you famous all of a sudden. You know?
Nobody's gonna remember your logo, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Right. Absolutely. I love it. Very cool. So is there any last thoughts that you would like to share? Tips, tricks, anything like that as we start to kind of wrap up here?
Well, I think that one of the biggest things that I encourage everybody to do is do a mental check. Like, go back every once in a while. And when you start feeling like you're losing touch with where your brand is or where
Hmm.
your business is going, just go back to the beginning. Just
Right.
remember how that all started, and remember that it may have changed.
Mm-hmm.
It may be you may have different markets now. You may have more offers right now, but you gotta remember who you are and don't ever forget that.
Right.
Because I had so many conversations where people I listened to them and I just go, oh, okay, well that was Chat GPT right there. Your entire speech to me was Chat GPT, and there was none of it was you. So
Right.
just don't forget who you are.
Yeah, I agree with that. Um, yeah, that's a whole different. We could have a whole show on that alone. Because AI
Yes.
is so prevalent right now, and one thing about that is, and this goes back to what you and I are talking about in this whole show, is that the emotional intelligence side, the who you really innately are in your core, and who you want to help because you really want to help that individual, just it makes such a big difference. And a lot of times people don't think about that piece enough to begin with. But then when they're using AI and all the other tools that are out there, which the tools are useful, there's nothing wrong with that,
Mhm.
but
Sure.
they don't put these things into place. It's like there's a coach, I don't know if you've heard of him, Dan Sullivan,
Mhm.
from Strategic Coach. He has one question that I think is like the most brilliant question that everybody should be asking. It's like, who do you want to be a hero to?
Yeah.
And if you can answer that question and keep that at the baseline of everything else you do, everything else fits into place way, way
Yeah.
faster and way, way easier.
That's a brilliant line. I
Yeah.
like that.
Awesome.
Hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're starting to wrap up here. So the last question is the easy one. How do people get a hold of you? But before that, this is the Meet Cool People show. So if you would do me a favor and let me know, what does Meet Cool People mean to you?
Meet cool people to me is meeting people that I actually want to hang out with. People who make me feel like I want to grab a coffee and have a good conversation. People that I want to actually be around and spend time with. That's what it means to me.
Awesome. I love it. Very simple. Very cool. Okay. So last question here is how do people get a hold of you?
Well, there's a lot of places I am, but I think that the easiest place where I'm always and where I put all my thoughts and everything that I know is LinkedIn.
All right. Awesome. Well, we'll make sure we put your LinkedIn link on the show notes here and everything. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. This was fantastic.
Very cool. All right. Everybody else, get out there. Have an amazing week. If there's anything else I can do for you, reach out and let me know. Take care. And that wraps up another Meet Cool People show. Now, if you like what you heard, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, or review so I can help introduce these amazing cool people to even more amazing cool people. And just remember, meeting cool people is just the beginning. You need to have a system in place to follow up with the amazing people that you meet. This is exactly what we do for our clients. Now, if you'd like to see if my team and I can help you, go to convertmoreclientsnow.com and check out the case study video to see exactly how we're helping our clients turn casual connections into cash clients for life. Again, go to convertmoreclientsnow.com and see how we can work together to turn you into a follow-up rock star.